Today we will be doing a class exercise using the leverage ratio, equity multiplier, and also to see how higher equity multiplier can lead to higher returns on equities. So in this exercise, I have given you two bank scenarios, a high capital bank and the low capital bank with their individual liabilities and assets. So first let's start with question A, which is a leverage ratio. Mind you, there are two definitions of leverage ratios. One definition of leverage ratio is, which is we call it definition 1. So leverage ratio is capital over assets, and the definition 2 of leverage ratio is debt over capital. Now for the bank's case, what is a debt? Debt in a bank scenario can be the deposits, because deposit is a liability that bank has to pay back to the people who have deposited money. In a way, when you deposit money in a bank, basically you are lending your money to the bank against the interest rate that banks will be paying you. So from the bank scenario, your deposits is your debt. So now let's calculate leverage ratio using both definitions for high bank and the low bank capital. So I'll write high bank here and I have low bank on this side. So by definition of leverage ratio 1, in this case, capital over assets, how much is the capital? Is 10 million. And how much is the assets? Assets is 10 plus 90, which is 100. So 100. So in this case, your leverage ratio is 10%. For low bank capital, by the same definition of leverage, which is bank capital of 4, which divided by 100, which means a leverage ratio of 4%. Let's now take definition 2, which we call LR2. Sorry, we have to put 2 here. LR2, how much is the debt for high bank capital? $90 million, 90. How much is the capital? 10, which means 9. By same definition for low bank capital, this is 96 over 4, which gives you 24. So you can see here that by this definition, that means for each borrowed amount of money, this bank or high capital bank borrowed $9 against $24 for low capital bank. Now let's calculate equity multiplier. By definition, equity multiplier is the inverse of leverage ratio, which is assets over capital. So let's do it for EM here. How much is the assets for this bank? Assets are 100. How much is the deposits? Deposits are 10. So it's 10 equity multiplier. For low bank capital, equity multiplier is 100 over 4, which is 25. So equity multiplier for low bank is 25. Equity multiplier for high bank is 10. Now finally, let's talk about the question C, which is suppose this bank have been equally well run. So they both have the same return on assets of 5%. Calculate the returns on equities for high bank capital and low bank capital. And we all know ROE can be calculated as ROA times equity multiplier. Now ROA is given to be 5%. So ROE for high bank capital would be 5% times equity multiplier 10, which means 50%. For this, low bank capital ROE would be 5% times 25, which is 125%. Now you can see why equity holders prefer low bank capital, because if the low bank capital, they have a return of 125% against 50% in case of high bank capital. That's why shareholders love to have low bank capital. But what's the downside again? Downside is higher risk. But obviously, often banks, especially the bank managers or the bank CEOs, they try to make the bank highly leveraged. That's because their shareholders love. So what they can do to increase the leverage in their bank, so or to load the amount of capital related to asset and raise the equity multiplier, a bank can do any of the three things. First, bank can reduce the amount of bank capital by buying back some of the bank stock, which is the share buyback that often banks engage in. Banks can reduce the bank's capital by paying out higher dividends to its stockholders, thereby reducing the bank's retained earnings. And finally, bank can keep capital constant but increase the bank's assets by acquiring new funds, which is say by using CDs and then by seeking out loan businesses or purchasing more securities with these new funds. So also they can just borrow more money from the Fed. So all this can happen to bump up their liabilities and also to bump up their assets, and in the sense they can reduce the equity multiplier.